When a trail closes, we're told it's for safety. But safety isn't silence, and silence isn't the same as empty. Across America's national parks, there are paths that end behind fences and gates with no reason listed. No landslide, no wildlife, just absence. Officially, these closures are temporary. Unofficially, some of them never opened again. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this video, you'll never walk a national park trail the same way again. Elkmont's forgotten suburb. Deep inside the Great Smoky Mountains, past the tourist trails and the souvenir stands, there's a road that ends too early. Beyond the trees lies what used to be Elkmont, a summer village frozen in time. Once this place was full of light, dozens of cabins built by wealthy Knoxville families in the 1910s, lining the little river like a miniature suburb in the woods. When the park was created in 1934, the residents were allowed to stay under lifetime leases. But by the 1980s, those leases expired. The government bought every home, evacuated every family, and locked the doors. The sign said, "Closed for restoration." But restoration never came. Today, half the cabins are gone. The others sit sealed, windows boarded from the inside. The forest has grown around them, swallowing driveways and porches. And yet, every few months, something inside still turns on. It started in 1982, the year after the final resident left. Rangers reported faint lights flickering through the windows of the millionaire row cabins, soft yellow, like kerosene lanterns. They assumed trespassers, but the locks were unbroken, the dust inside undisturbed. By 1984, motion sensors placed around the village began triggering after midnight, movement recorded inside locked structures. The National Park Service wrote it off as small animals, until one ranger saw it himself. He was patrolling near the Levi Trentham cabin when light filled the windows, every one of them all at once. He stepped closer. The air temperature dropped sharply. Then the lights began to move, not flicker, move, as if someone were walking with lanterns through the rooms, pacing from corner to corner. When he reached the porch, the light cut out. He radioed it in. The next morning, the interior was checked. No footprints, no heat, just the faint scent of ozone, like after lightning. In 1992, infrared cameras were installed to catch vandals. They didn't capture people. They captured shadows, human shapes standing motionless by the windows, visible only in thermal range. The images were archived, then removed from the ranger database the following year. Locals who hike near the site say they still hear doors closing at night. One man swears he heard an old Victrola record playing from inside a cabin that no longer exists. The official reason for the closure remains structural instability, yet some of the restored cabins nearby, perfectly safe, were also sealed again in 2017 without notice. When asked why, a park spokesperson simply said, "It's safer if no one stays there after dark." Elkmont isn't haunted in the way ghost stories are told. It's haunted by its own timeline, a place stuck halfway between preservation and erasure. The electricity was cut decades ago, but every year someone reports lights turning on. Sometimes they flicker in sequence, like a heartbeat traveling through the forest. Other times, they all glow at once, bright enough to paint the river gold. Maybe it's memory, maybe it's static electricity trapped in the wood, or maybe Elkmont never really went dark. The park just learned to turn it off when someone gets too close. White Oak Sink Cave System. White Oak Sink isn't on most park maps anymore. It's a collapsed valley tucked deep between ridges, reachable only by an unmarked path through dense forest. For decades, hikers called it a hidden gem, a sinkhole filled with wildflowers, waterfalls, and air so still it felt outside of time. Then, in 2014, the government closed it. Officially, the reason was ecological. A mysterious fungus known as white nose syndrome was wiping out bat colonies. Rangers sealed the caves to protect what remained. But what started as a conservation effort turned into something stranger. That winter, biologists returning to check the sealed entrances noticed that their motion sensors kept triggering, always between midnight and 3 a.m., long after any animal activity. When they reviewed the data, they found vibrations registered not around the caves but inside them, deep underground, like footsteps pacing in slow, steady rhythm. By 2016, the sensors began picking up sound. Low-frequency pulses, repeating every 9 seconds, resonating through solid limestone. At first they assumed water flow, but the frequency didn't change with rainfall, temperature, or season. It was constant and unnervingly organic. The deeper sensors recorded faint metallic resonance, like a struck bell. Then came the hum, a continuous tone, nearly inaudible to human ears, emanating from the largest sealed chamber. The sound would rise slowly, peak and fade, always lasting exactly 6 minutes and 24 seconds before repeating. When plotted on a spectrogram, the waveform resembled a heartbeat. Researchers from the University of Tennessee analyzed the recordings. Their report included one chilling line: acoustic emission pattern inconsistent with known geological processes, possible anthropogenic or mechanical source. The National Park Service immediately restricted all access: no tours, no research permits, no photography. They cited hazardous conditions. Unofficially, rangers still patrol the perimeter at night. One of them, speaking anonymously to a Knoxville journalist, said this: "Sometimes you can feel it through the ground, like the rock is breathing, but it's not in sync with anything alive up here." In 2018, a maintenance team found one of the metal gates slightly bent outward. The bolts weren't broken, they were stretched, as if the steel had softened from within. Inside the gate, the air was warm, humid, and vibrating faintly. Park headquarters reported it as minor vandalism, but the area was expanded to a full quarter-mile exclusion zone soon after. Hikers who venture close claim their compasses twitch. Some say they hear echoes when they speak, not delayed but advanced, as if the sound comes back before the words finish. A retired ranger who worked the closure summed it up best: "They said we were protecting the bats, but if you've ever stood there at night and felt the ground hum, you know something else is still inside. And it's not sleeping." Today, White Oak Sink remains sealed. No one knows if the bats ever returned, but the sensors still do, transmitting faint vibrations every few nights, steady as breathing. Whatever's beneath those caves, it's not decaying, it's waiting. Devil's Hole Cavern. Devil's Hole looks unassuming, a dark crack in the desert floor surrounded by a chain-link fence and government signs that read, "Do not enter federal property." It's part of Death Valley, though technically separated by miles of dry wasteland. To most visitors, it's nothing but a hole. To scientists, it's the deepest known geothermal fissure in North America, and the only home of a tiny, endangered fish that shouldn't even be alive. But Devil's Hole is more than an ecosystem. It's a mystery that watches back. The water inside glows a strange turquoise under sunlight, yet it's impossibly deep. No one knows how far it goes. In 1952, US Geological Survey teams tried to measure it with weighted instruments. The line ran out at 500 feet. When they reeled it up, the cable came back frayed, as if dragged through stone. In 1962, a diver named Paul Decker descended into the cavern to collect water samples. At 100 feet, his flashlight beam disappeared into a vertical void. He later described it as like staring into a hallway that had no end. Minutes later, the safety line went slack. Decker resurfaced, shaking. He claimed to have heard a metallic echo from somewhere below, rhythmic, deliberate. He refused to dive again. Over the years, more than a dozen scientists have reported the same anomaly: vibrations and heat spikes detected by underwater sensors, always at irregular intervals, always deep beneath measurable range. The National Park Service calls it a hydrothermal fluctuation, but thermal cameras show the heat rising in vertical columns, as if from moving machinery. In 1976, a small earthquake struck central Nevada. Security footage from Devil's Hole, one of the only cameras pointed directly at groundwater, captured something remarkable. Seconds before the quake reached the area, the water inside began to churn violently, sloshing in perfect rhythm with seismic waves that hadn't arrived yet. The cavern had reacted before the tremor hit. After that, the site was closed to the public. Only authorized research teams were allowed entry, escorted, timed, monitored. In 1998, 2 college students broke in at night, lowering a camera rig to the water. The footage was later confiscated, but witnesses said the audio track captured a deep, resonant hum echoing from below, steady as a machine engine. Their video ended abruptly mid-frame when the camera's light source flickered and went black. When rangers found them hours later, the students were dazed, dehydrated, sitting outside the fence with their equipment destroyed. Both claimed they heard something calling from below. Neither would elaborate. Modern sonar still can't chart the full depth of Devil's Hole. It extends beyond measurable range, its internal temperature rising unnaturally at 450 feet, as if something down there produces heat rather than stores it. To this day, the site remains sealed behind locked gates and motion sensors. The official reason: protection of the Devil's Hole pupfish. Unofficially, no one wants to admit the truth, that the cavern behaves like a living thing, responding to quakes, sound, even proximity. Scientists say it's geothermal resonance. Locals have another name. They call it the throat of the desert, because every few years Devil's Hole exhales, and the ground trembles like something beneath Death Valley just woke up. Hazel Creek Town Site. Hazel Creek was never meant to vanish. It was a living town with schools, a post office, and a church whose bell could be heard for miles across the valley. Then the dam came. In 1943, the federal government approved the construction of the Fontana Dam, flooding 17,000 acres of the Smoky Mountains to power the war effort. By 1948, the residents of Hazel Creek were forced out. Their homes were dismantled, their cemeteries relocated, or so the papers claimed. When the water rose, it swallowed what was left. The government promised a new road, a way for families to visit their lost graves. That road was never built. Instead, they built fences, and for the next 70 years the valley stayed silent. Almost. In 1977, park rangers patrolling the lake at night began reporting something strange, faint bell sounds echoing over the water. At first, they assumed church bells from nearby Bryson City, but sound doesn't travel that way in the mountains, and these bells came from beneath the surface. The tone was low, metallic and slightly off-pitch, like a submerged chime striking against pressure. It repeated in perfect intervals, every 64 seconds, always after midnight. Divers were sent to investigate, but visibility below 20 feet was zero. The sonar scans showed hollow spaces beneath the sediment, structures still standing. One reading near the old church coordinates revealed a cavity shaped like a dome still intact, with air trapped inside. The divers never reached it. Their lines began to vibrate as if something below was pulling gently, rhythmically. They surfaced early, shaken. The official report listed it as water current interference. Unofficially, it became known as the Bell Field. In 1992, a journalist from Asheville snuck into the restricted area and lowered a hydrophone into the water. The recording captured a series of tones so deep they were nearly inaudible, subsonic waves resonating through the entire lake. When played back at normal speed, the frequencies formed a sequence, 2 short tones, 1 long. The same pattern used in maritime distress signals, 2 short, 1 long. Help. By 2001, the National Park Service had officially labeled Hazel Creek a non-accessible heritage site. All requests for further diving were denied. Locals still visit the shore each year, gathering where the road ends. They say the air feels heavier there, the water darker. Sometimes when the lake is still, you can see bubbles rising from the center, slow, deliberate, as if something trapped below is exhaling. The park calls it decomposition gas from old timbers, but there were no timbers near the church. Every few years, someone claims to hear the bells again, faint, echoing through fog, always at night, always the same tone. Some think it's wind trapped between the ridges, others think it's memory trapped underwater. Hazel Creek was supposed to be forgotten, but memory, like sound, doesn't drown easily. Marble Canyon Restricted Trail. There's a part of the Grand Canyon you'll never hike, not because it's too steep, but because it was erased from every modern map. It was once called the Marble Canyon Access Trail, a narrow descent that wound between cliffs of polished limestone and ended at a ledge overlooking the Colorado River. It was open for only 6 years. In 1979, the trail was abruptly closed after what the Park Service described as a localized collapse. The sign went up, "Trail closed, hazardous conditions." No further explanation, no reopening date. Locals didn't believe it was just a rockfall. They'd seen the rangers before the closure, pale, silent, carrying equipment they didn't normally use. Seismic sensors, not shovels. The official report listed 2 missing hikers, a couple from Flagstaff last seen entering the canyon a week earlier. Their car was found, their gear left at the trailhead. No bodies, no tracks, only a camera, recovered at the halfway point, its film water damaged except for one photograph. The image showed the canyon wall glowing faintly, a diffuse blue-white light reflecting off the rock. The timestamp, 2:47 a.m. There are no light sources in Marble Canyon. When rangers returned days later, they found a section of trail sunken by almost 3 feet, as though the ground had softened and then refrozen in place. Seismic readings from that night showed no earthquake, just a single sudden vibration lasting less than a second and originating from below the canyon floor. The park sealed the area within days. Access was forbidden, maps redrawn. In 1984, a maintenance helicopter flying over the restricted zone reported hearing human screams echoing through the gorge. Audio analysis later determined the sound was not human at all, but mechanical, harmonically structured, like metal scraping against itself in rhythm. No one could explain why it carried so clearly through stone. By 1999, Marble Canyon was removed entirely from public hiking brochures. The official coordinates were reclassified as Environmental Study Zone A17. Geologists who've studied the canyon's stratigraphy noticed something peculiar about that region. The rock formations there vibrate differently. When struck, they ring like glass, and sometimes that ring doesn't fade. It deepens, as if something below is resonating back. A 2007 LiDAR scan accidentally captured an anomaly beneath the sealed area, a hollow chamber, roughly the size of a stadium, 800 feet down. When the data reached Washington, the scan files were flagged confidential, do not release. In 2012, a drone flown illegally through the perimeter by a private hiker recorded 11 seconds of footage before signal loss. The final frame showed light. Not sunlight, not reflection, but a narrow vertical beam shining up through a crack in the canyon floor. Then static. Today the trail remains chained and overgrown, the signs rusted but still standing. Rangers patrol it more often than anywhere else in the park. When asked why, one replied quietly, "Because it still makes noise sometimes." At night, climbers camping near the rim say they can hear it too, a deep hum rising from the canyon, pulsing like a slow heartbeat, echoing against the walls. It starts low, then it gets closer. Whatever fell silent in 1979 never really stopped moving. It just went deeper. Happy Isles Rockfall Zone. Just before dawn on July 10, 1999, Yosemite Valley shook. A slab of granite the size of an apartment building broke free from Glacier Point and crashed into the forest below, flattening trees and scattering boulders across the Happy Isles Trail. It was one of the most violent rockfalls in the park's history. 4 people were injured. 2 nearly died. But what survivors remember most isn't the sound of the collapse. It's what came before it. One woman, waiting near the trailhead, said the air turned heavy and hot, as if the sun had suddenly risen behind her. Another hiker described a noise like a jet engine coming from the granite wall, though no planes were in the sky. The ranger's official report lists thermal expansion and pressure as the cause. But the temperatures that morning were cold, 48 degrees. The rock somehow had heated itself. After the slide, engineers studied the fragments. Some were smooth as glass, fused at the edges like melted metal. Granite doesn't melt at that temperature. It fractures, it shatters, it doesn't fuse. 2 months later, the Park Service quietly fenced the area off, marking it unstable. But the ground stabilized long ago. What hasn't stopped are the readings. In 2001, thermal sensors placed along the valley walls began detecting brief, localized spikes, flashes of heat lasting less than a second, always beneath solid rock. They called them microflares. Every time one occurred, magnetic instruments nearby registered interference, compass needles twitching a full 40 degrees before settling again. At first, they thought it was coincidence. Then the pattern emerged. Each spike happened at night, between 2:00 and 2:07 a.m., roughly every 11 days. In 2004, a ranger stationed at the Happy Isles Nature Center recorded what sounded like distant thunder. The noise repeated 3 times, evenly spaced with no clouds in the sky. He checked the instruments the next morning. Another microflare had occurred. By 2008, the exclusion zone was expanded. Hikers reported seeing faint red light flickering through cracks in the granite face, too steady to be reflection. Cell phones lost service. Radios filled with static. The park never confirmed any of it. Then in 2013, a group of climbers camping beyond the fence captured something extraordinary. At 2:03 a.m., the granite wall glowed. Not fully, not like fire, but with a dim inner light that seemed to breathe in and out of the stone. Geologists say the granite contains high concentrations of quartz, a mineral that can store energy and release it under pressure. But even quartz doesn't glow on its own, and no geological process pulses with that kind of rhythm. In 2017, during a maintenance inspection, workers found the rock warm to the touch, despite being in shadow all day. Thermal readings showed a temperature differential of 18 degrees between the sealed zone and the rest of the valley. The official explanation was simple: solar retention, except there was no sunlight. Today, the Happy Isles Rockfall Zone remains off limits. The signs sun-bleached but firm. Closed. Geological hazard. Yet hikers who pause near the boundary at night swear they can feel it. A faint vibration through the ground, like breath moving behind stone. Some say it's pressure, others think it's the mountain itself, still remembering the moment it broke. Whatever it is, it's still alive. And maybe that's why the park won't let anyone too close, because if rock can burn without fire, then maybe it's not the granite that's unstable, maybe it's time. 6 trails, 6 warnings hidden behind words like erosion, instability, conservation. But maybe those signs weren't protecting us from the land. Maybe they were protecting the land from us. A ghost town whose lights never went out. A cave that breathes when no air should move. A desert hole that hums before earthquakes strike. A drowned church that still rings through the water. A canyon that glows from within. And a mountain that remembers how it burned. Every closure has a reason, but some reasons don't fit on government paperwork. Maybe these places were never abandoned. Maybe they're active, still running on cycles we can't measure, still holding heat, still vibrating in the dark. And maybe the park rangers aren't just caretakers of the land. They're the ones standing guard over what the land refuses to release. We walk the marked trails, take the pictures, follow the maps. But behind every fence, every gate, there's a trail that didn't end. It just went deeper. 6 stories, 6 warnings carved into stone. If you made it this far, thank you. Leave a like if one of these places stayed with you. Tell us which park you'd still visit, and which you'd rather stay closed forever. But remember, every trail closed sign means someone went too far once. And sometimes what they found is still waiting there.